لله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وما بعد. So reviewing what we did last week, we mentioned all the heirs, so all 23 of them, right? 2 of them we didn't do because they were the emancipators. So we should have memorized that. Fard wa ta'asib, we talked about that. Those who receive by fard, prescribed shares, and we're going to talk about today those who get residual shares. It's called ta'asib. How many types of prescribed shares are there? We said there's 6. Who remembers? Group A and Group B. 1/2, huh? 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 2/3, 1/3, 1/6. Right? You have to memorize those. Those are the prescribed shares. Then we went to the chart on slide number 15 about who gets what. So we have to memorize that, right? So that was our homework. Okay, without looking. The father and grandfather. Right, so you can't put it there, you gotta move that. Right? We have to memorize, no, without looking. Father and grandfather. Right? Who has it? 1/6 or residual or both. Okay, and grandmother? 1/6. Mother? 1/3, 1/6. And then paternal sister and granddaughters? 2/3 if there's 2. 1/2 if there's 1. 1/6 or a share. And how about the other 2? The full sister and the full sister and the full daughters or daughters. The same thing, right? You just have to take out the 1/6. So you get the same thing with no 1/6. And who's missing? Husband? 1/2 and 1/4 and wife? The wife 1/4, 1/8, and who's missing here? Maternal siblings? 1/3 if there's 2 or more, or 1/6. That's all of them. Right? So you have to have them memorized because we're gonna play with them later, inshallah, with these numbers. So we have to know them. So today we're gonna look at slide number 18. Today we're looking at the people who get ta'asib. So whoever is not ashab al-fard, they're gonna be ashab al-ta'asib. And these people, they're everybody else in the chart that we initially mentioned. So ashab al-furud are 11. That means the rest of them are ashab al-ta'asib. So if we do the math here, we have 4 plus 4 is 8. And then we have for another 4, so 12 of them here. Right? Because we're looking at 23 instead of 25. So I put them in categories. So this chart will be the focus for today. And then we're going to take a look at some of the other rules. So the people of ta'asib is a little bit easier in that they get the residual amounts. Whatever is remaining, it goes to the closest heir from the people who are the people of ta'asib. Ta'asib means they're agnate relatives. They come from the father's side, except for we mentioned the maternal siblings. They're on the fard side. But everybody else in this chart is all paternal siblings. So what happens here is that when you have finished giving the people who are prescribed share their share, the hadith in the bottom, hadith ibn Abbas, and what remains goes to the nearest male heir. Whatever is remaining, the awla rajul dhakar, whoever is closer. So we have to understand then the strength of each of these heirs, and I put them in categories. We have sons, then fathers, then brothers, uncles. You have to memorize that order. The strength, it goes from strongest to weakest in relationship one way, and then it's closer to further relationship the other way. So in each category, you can say each one of these is a jins or jiha. Jiha means relationship. So they call the ulama, they use the word jiha. Jiha means the direction of the relationship. Sons, then the brothers, or fathers, then the brothers, and then the uncles. This is the jihad, right? The direction. So you want to think about how to remember that. Sons and fathers are usul and furu'. So clearly they're stronger than people who are hawashi. So therefore it's easy to remember. Usul are the people who are subsidiaries they branch from the deceased, and usul are the foundational heirs. So why are the sons the strongest? We said last week, if a person passes away, their son or the grandson will take their job. They'll take care of the family. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the strength. So you have to remember, sons are stronger than the fathers. Means if there's no son, then somebody's father will take his place. So that's why the fathers are there. So furu' and usul. And then the hawashi, the marginal heirs on both sides. Brothers are closer to uncles. Okay, so that's in the jihad. So if, let's say they all gather together, who will get it? Whatever's remaining will go to the son. There's no son, then we look for grandson. No grandson, we look for the father, no father, like that. You go down all of them this way. And it's terms of strength. Then within the same category, they have strength. So, let's say there are sons and grandsons. This is called closer to versus further. They call this manzila qurba. So the jihad means sons, fathers, brothers, uncles. And within that category, those are closer and those are farther. Maybe qurba, who's closer? So a son is closer to the deceased than his grandson. So the rule is, if there's sons, everybody else gets cut off. Grandson all the way down. Why? Because he's the closest heir in both jihad and qurba. He's the first category, so he's the son category, and he's the strongest in that category. Okay, let's say there's no son, and a man passed away, he has a grandson. So the grandson then is strongest in terms of the jihad, he's in the son's category, and qurba, there's no one above him. So there we go. So everyone else like that. So that's how they work. Essentially, if one category is there, then it's going to cut off the other. So ultimately, imagine there's no sons, no fathers, no brothers. Then we go to the uncles. Why? Because in jihad, they're weak. And then within the category, the full paternal uncle is stronger than the full paternal uncle's son. The full paternal uncle is stronger than the paternal half uncle, like that. And it makes sense because where you memorized initially, it's in the order of strength already. So if you memorized initially, then you already know the strength. If you didn't, now you're going to remember it. So the way this works then, when we finish Ashab al-Furud, we give everybody their due shares, if there's anything remaining. And the key word is if, because sometimes there's nothing remaining. They take everything. Because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فَمَا بَقِيَ, if there's anything remaining. That's the key. That's a sharat. If there's nothing, khalas, done. So the thing that's interesting here is that who are these people who are always going to be receiving? The fathers and sons, the sons for sure, we know they can't be cut off. But the father, didn't the father come in the last one too? So we're going to see the fathers are interesting because they're both Ashab al-Furud wa Ta'asib. They're both. So their situation will change depending if the son is there or not. Or sons, any sons. So the idea you have to remember, the sons and fathers, because they're subsidiary, furu' and foundation, usul heirs, they're going to be present. The question really is when there's no sons, no grandsons, no fathers, no paternal grandfathers, then the other marginal heirs are going to come in. So ta'asib is a little easier than ashab al-furud in that we just look for the strength. The question someone may say now, sons are stronger than fathers. So what happens when they come together? So let's think about it. Sons are ashab al-ta'asib. They only receive what's residual. But his father is there too. But the father is also ashab al-furud. So you know when we said 1/6, when does the father get 1/6? When? Right? We gotta think when the son is there. That's one, right? That's it. He won't get anything else. So his son is there, he only gets his 1/6. But let's say now his son is not there. Then he's still gonna get his 1/6, but he can get more even. Or sometimes he might not get the 1/6, you just get the residual. So the fathers are unique in that sometimes they get their prescribed share, sometimes they'll get extra. But the real thing we have to pay attention to is clear. Sons, fathers, then we look to the brothers and the uncles. So we're going to see the scenarios will come later when they all join together. You're going to go for strength. You always look for strength and nearness. So our job now is to remember this. Who's stronger than who? Sons, then fathers, then brothers, then uncles. And under each there's the levels. Son, grandson, going downwards. Now keep going, grandson, you can keep going. The more you go down, the further they go, the weaker they are. Okay, how about the fathers? Father, paternal grandfather, great paternal grandfather, you keep going up, they're weaker. Right? You go upwards. So in most cases it's not going to happen because that grandfather's probably not alive. Right? But if there is a case where he's alive, then yes. Okay, the brothers, full brother, and then the full brother's son. And the paternal brother and the paternal brother's son. That goes with the strengths here, right? So obviously, if you look carefully, full is stronger, right? Full brother is stronger than paternal brother, and a full brother's son is stronger because even though he's a son of a full brother, his jihad is still stronger because he's from a full side. The other one's paternal. Unlike this, and you just memorize them like that. So the key is remember the hadith. When we finish with the people of a prescription, we must give what's remaining to the person who's nearest. The sons and grandsons are the most important, especially the sons, because they impact everybody, and the fathers and paternal grandfathers, if he's present, all right, they're going to also be there. Okay, now that we understand this, we have to pay attention to memorizing it. It's a little easier because if you memorize all 25 heirs, all you have to remember is who comes first. Right? So for example, brothers are going to be after sons and fathers, right? So brothers, they're going to say sons, fathers, brothers, uncles. And in each one, you just think about who's closer than who. That's easiest to remember. So one way to remember sons, who comes from a son, grandson, khalas, right? So whoever comes from him is weaker than him because he came from him. And who comes from him is weaker because he's coming from him. Okay, fathers, whoever's above him. And paternal grandfathers, all of them are counted, right? Because the grandfathers are only paternal because they can only be, there's no maternal grandmother or grandfather here, no paternal grandmother, sorry. Because paternal grandmothers will be an heir, a deceased woman, right? And then a male. No, it doesn't work. So when we say grandfather, only paternal grandfathers going up. So for example, your father's father, and I keep going like that, up, right that way. Okay, brothers, just remember full is stronger than paternal. That's all you have to remember. If you remember that, it's always easy. So full brother and full brother son. Okay, they're stronger. And then the paternal is half, so therefore paternal brother son. Downwards, going down, right? So even full brother son going downwards. And these are not as common, but they can exist. And then the uncles, full uncle, paternal uncle stronger than that, paternal half uncle, likewise his son. So the reason why this part is important is that let's imagine now we have a scenario where we have all of them present, and in some cases only one of them is present. So there are some cases where there's going to be sharing going on. For example, not now, not in this case, but some preference usually, and sometimes there's no preference because only one of them there. So in order to understand those scenarios, right, because we're going to memorize this, I mean, we already kind of memorized it, but right, you're going to memorize the strengths. Let's go to slide number 19. And we have to understand the possible scenarios regarding the ashab al-ta'asib. Means these are all the 5 possible scenarios that occur. So let's assume now we're talking about the people who are getting residual shares. There are 5 possible scenarios. Scenario number 1, there is no surviving person who receives ta'asib except for one. So let's say there's only one heir who's from the people of ashab al-ta'asib. They call him asib. Asib just means one who's the agent relative, a paternal relative. So all those guys we just mentioned, they're called the asaba and asib. This is what they call them, or the mu'sib, right? This language. Okay, so if there's only one of them, he gets everything. Okay, let's say a man dies, he leaves behind a wife and a son. Okay, so the wife, how much is going to get? Actually, there's 2 choices. How much is going to get? 1/8. We said wife and son. Right, wife and son. So a man dies, the wife, and there's a far'i, it's a son. So she's going to get the 1/8. And then how about the son? He gets everything after. Why? Because nobody else there. So there's nothing he has to worry about. He gets everything. Okay, another scenario. There's a wife. A man passed away, he has a wife. And then he has, let's say, I don't know if we go on our list here. Let's say there's also a paternal grandfather. Right, somehow. So what's going to happen there? The wife gets the 1/8. And what does he get, the paternal grandfather? Everything else, because nobody else is there. So this should show us that when there's only one surviving heir from the people of ta'asib, there's no competition, just give everything. So you give the people fard, then whatever is remaining, give it to the people who are asaba. That's it, ta'asib. That's the easy scenario. There's only one person, he gets everything. After the ashab al-furud, key word, you have to give the prescribed shares first. You can't give the others, you have to give prescribed shares first, because that's what the hadith says. Give the people who prescribed shares the huquq, then what's remaining? Okay, second scenario. There are relatives from ashab al-ta'asib, and they have their sisters there too. So this one, they call it asaba bil ghayr. All it means is that brothers share with sisters. You have to remember this, brothers, they share with sisters. So do you ever think about when do brothers and sisters get together? Or like in terms of inheritance? Okay, let's say there's a son and a daughter. The son is ashab al-ta'asib, he gets residual amount. The daughter is from the people of fard. What's going to happen here? Because they're both brother and sister, they're going to share. And how do they share? 2-1. That's where the 2-1 comes. So now we have to remember who are the people who have to share with their brothers. So think about it. With all 23 we memorized, who has a brother and a sister who are on the same level? So sons and daughters, they're one. Anybody else? Full brother and full sister. Okay, how about paternal brother, paternal sister? Who else? Maternal siblings always group together, so they're like by themselves. Who else? Granddaughters and grandsons. Anybody else? That's it, right? So those are the groups. So every time there's a brother and a sister who are the same level, so think about full sister and full brother. They're going to come together. Even though the full sister gets prescribed share, but since her brother is there, and they're both brothers and sisters, they got to go together. That's what we talked about. So if you go back now to our slide for a second, on number 15, remember we said that the daughters can get 2/3 if there's two, 1/3, 1/2 if there's one, and they share with brothers. Now we know what it means to share with brothers. What does that mean? Okay, let's say there's a son and daughter. A man passes away, he has a wife, and a son and a daughter. So the wife is going to get, she has her fard, she gets her 1/8. Okay, son and daughter, what do they do? Typically, someone will say, well, daughter gets 1/2 because only one. No, that's what you're supposed to give her. But because her brother is there, they're going to go together. And what do they do now? How are we going to share this? 2-1. That's what the ayah is talking about. This is what it means. Because otherwise, you couldn't give her 1/2 and him the residual, because anyway, they're both the same, but he gets more because he's a son. So that's what we're talking about. Another example would be like, let's say a full sister and a full brother. So whenever we share brothers, that's the second scenario. If there's a person who receives a residual share and his sister is there, on the same level we're talking about. So it must be, like example, daughters, sons, full sister, full brother, paternal brother, paternal sister, granddaughter, grandson, like that. That's it, and it makes sense because they're all on the same level. You couldn't cut one off. How could you, right? You couldn't say, oh, well, sorry, cut him off. The only time that happens, we're going to see, is when there's some kind of weakness in the near relationship. So that's 2-1. We're going to come to that later on slide number 19. We're going to come back to 2-1. So that's scenario number 2. Okay, so think about that, right? Because if you jump too fast to giving the shares, you might skip that part. So sometimes what people do, they look at each individual. Yes, we look at everyone's share, and we have to remember, isn't it siblings here? And the granddaughter is unique, because the granddaughter, she shares with her grandson, or her brother, and she shares with those lower than her. Because her standing is very low. So the ulama says she's unique. The granddaughter and grandson, they will share. But imagine there's a grandson, looks down, more down, she still will share with him too. So we're going to see the granddaughter is unique in the angle because of the fact that she's a female fara' who's down, lower. So we're going to come back to that one. But you don't have to worry about it. Just remember 2-1. When does that happen? When is it 2 portions for a man versus 1? Whenever there's a residual heir with his sister. And you're going to see a hikmah here. Where are the ashab al-furuda mostly women? Ashab al-ta'asib mostly men? Someone will say, why? That's a hikmah, even with wisdom, you think about deeply. Why is it that the son, I'll go back to slide number 18. Take a look, slide 18 for a second. Any women here? See? And someone will say, why is it? Why the prescribed shares are mostly women? And we said before, one reason is because the prescribed shares are going to be either less, usually less than amount. But number 2, to secure the haqq. That's Islam. See, to secure. Someone comes and say women's rights. What are you talking about? They get guaranteed rights. They get the guaranteed share. They rarely, but then the ashab al-ta'asib, they're getting cut off all the time. Right? So comparatively speaking, there's more cut-offs going on here than over there. So the time this is important is that you can see now that when the ashab al-fard, that's why we always start with the people of fard first, the prescribed shares. When you're giving them, just remember, do they have a sister? Or does this sister have a brother? Then you bring the brother in. So for example, you're distributing the inheritance, you saw a daughter. Question you're going to ask, does she have a brother? You have to ask the wife because they're going to share. Otherwise you give daughter half and you cut the guy off. That's a horrible distribution, right? That's wrong and oppressive. So what you're going to do, you're going to ask. For example, if there's a paternal sister, you're going to also give her share, figure out what she's supposed to get, then ask the question, does she have a brother? If yes, then you group it together. Sometimes the brother comes in to help them, and we're going to see that. So pay attention to that part. Third scenario, there is some relatives alongside with the people who prescribe shares. So what do? You give the prescribed shares theirs, and anything remaining goes in order what we just studied. So scenario 3 is what we're looking at right now. Everyone gets what they deserve, and what's remaining, the closest one gets it. So an example, let's say there's a father, there's a mother, there's a wife, there's a full sister. We're going to give everybody the due share, and then we're going to look who's remaining of the ashab ta'asib, because we have to finish. Yeah, we have to finish first. So the reason why this is important is that sometimes what happens when you're distributing the inheritance, if you don't follow the order the Sharia told us, prescribed share first, then residual, you might end up trying to figure out who gets first in the residual, forgetting that prescribed shares haven't been distributed yet. And that's why we say if there's anything remaining. Is it possible that the prescribed shares take everything? Yes. Yes, it's possible. The only person we're going to see from this list, from the list we look at on slide number 18, the ones who can never get cut off, who are they? Sons and fathers. They never get cut off. And we're going to find that out. The 6 people, they never get cut off no matter what. They only get decreased, no cut off. So why is that important? Because if you're cutting off people who are not supposed to be cut off, then you're also distributing wrongly. So let's give an example. Let's say there's a man who passes away. He only has one daughter, and he has a full sister, and he has a paternal uncle. So daughter, full sister, paternal uncle. What are we going to do here? So we're just going to say, okay, how much daughters? 1? No brothers? So how much he gets? 1/2, right? Okay, then their full sister. There's no brothers here. There's nothing. So what she's going to get? 1/2, right? It's 1 again, right? Same 1. And then what about full uncle? Or the full uncle? He gets cut off. I'm sorry, nothing left. Half is full. He's out. That's it. Right? Because there's nothing left. There's nothing here. We finished it. We give half. So why am I saying that? Because sometimes that happens. Everyone gets to prescribe shares, take everything. The other guy's gone. That's it. And someone might say, why is that fair? Well, think about it. The people who Allah proceeds in giving the prescribed shares or give the residual, it's for wisdom. Usually it has to do with the fact that they're going to take care of the family, or the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that others, like uncles and stuff, they're also sons, right? So somebody's an uncle to one deceased and a son to another. Don't worry, he's getting his share over there. So he can't be eating from 2 plates, right? Some of us, I'm an uncle. Yeah, you're also son. You're going to get the other half over there. So when you get nothing today, when his father passed away, he gets everything. But imagine he gets something here, something there. And that's our cultures, you have a problem, right? Somebody inheriting everything. And in some cases, some guys in every case. How is he every case? He's everybody's uncle, brother, cousin. What's going on here? So you can see, and sometimes you notice in our family, somebody's inheriting. You think, like, subhanAllah, how many people dying? This guy's in the case. So what's happening is not Sharia. This is going on. This is the cultural stuff. So we have to think about why. If the uncle cuts off in one case, doesn't mean he won't be a son or a brother in another case. So you see, that's why case by case. So we have to pay attention to the order Allah put for a reason. So remember that order. The third case is when we have to take a look at prescribed and the ta'asib. So we're going to give the prescribed share first, then what's remaining, whoever's closer. Scenario 4, and this is the one we have to pay attention to, the father and the grandfather. So we said the father and grandfather, the only unique ones, in that they're both ashab fard ta'asib at the same time. So if a father or grandfather is an heir, they receive 1/6 if they're sons or grandsons. You have to remember this one, write it down. So when does the father get 1/6? If there's a son. Why? He becomes ashab fard when the son is there. Because he's the ashab ta'asib. We'll take the rest. So the father gets his 1/6 over there. That's it. But then he gets the residual amount and 1/6 when there's daughters and granddaughters, but no son. Okay, so if there's a son, he gets 1/6. That's it. Let's say there's no son, but there's a daughter. He gets his 1/6, and daughter will get her 1/2, and he's will take the remaining back to him because he's number 2 in line, right? After sons, fathers. And then let's say, right, the residual amount only if there's no subsidiary heirs. Let's say there's nobody. There's no furu' at all. There's no daughters, no sons, no grandsons, no granddaughters. Then he takes everything. Forget 1/6, he takes everything remaining. So we have to remember now, in this scenario, we learn something. The strength of the male heir versus the female heir. So the male fara', the son and sons are stronger than the daughters. Right? And some will say, why? Because we already said they're going to be carrying the family. So when there's a father and a son, father gets 1/6, that's it. If there's a daughter and a father, he'll get 1/6 plus what's remaining. And if there's nobody of the furu', when we say furu', what does furu' mean? Who could be a subsidiary heir? Sons, grandsons, going downwards, or daughters, and right, granddaughters from sons. That's it. These 4, and going down if they have to. Those are the 4. So these 4, if they're not there, then the father takes everything else. Because if you go back to chart number 18, slide 18, he's second in line. He's second in line, so he's gonna be ta'asib. That's the time where he takes everything. But in most cases, when you look carefully, you'll see the father is either getting 1/6 or 1/6 plus residual. So you have to remember, either he gets 1/6 when the son is there, or he'll get 1/6 plus what's remaining if there's only daughters. And if there's no subsidiary heirs, he gets everything. And with practice, we're going to see that you have to remember that. But that shows you something about the sons. So you got to memorize that, right? The father has the 3 scenarios. The grandfather, same thing. So 1/6 only if there's a son. 1/6 plus residual if there's a daughter or granddaughters. If there's nobody who's a subsidiary heir, he gets everything. After that, ashab al-furud. Makes sense? Right? The practice is gonna come back. This is all gonna come together. But this is very important, because now you can see how even the Sharia would meditate these two rights. Because if someone would look carefully, how come the son and father are together? How can we give the son less than the father? We have to give the son more, because he's the son. He's gonna carry on. The father's old, right? It wouldn't be fair he gets more, right? Because he's already a son too, right? He's already probably he already inherited something before. He can't be coming back and taking some more. But give the son. So you can even think about that way. Sometimes those thinking about the reason helps you remember, because otherwise it just becomes like confusing. And in the last situation, everybody's present, all 23. Or in our case, right, it's 25, but we're working with 23 in these classes. If 23 heirs are present, in this case, some heirs are going to get and some are not going to get. Not everybody can inherit at once. It's not enough to go around. And the reason why is we're going to look at strengths, either bijiha or qurba or menzila. We look at station, who's closer in the relationship, who's closer in status. We're also going to look who's ashab fard, who's ashab ta'asib. So the reason I'm saying that is because if you had an ideal case, then the ideal case is very simple. Why? Because you're going to give to ashab furud, and if there's a son, he takes everything. That's it after. It's very easy. So most of the cases are like that. If you know a son is there, khalas, you already know most of the case. Why? Because who's the ashab fard, boom, boom, everybody else's son gets done. So that's why it's so quick to settle it. And you think about it, the hikmah, why? Because the Arab, they don't know math and all these things, right? They were generally people, that time of Rasulullah, they were generally Bedouins, right? Or the unlettered. So it's very easy. So you have to think about it. If all 23 are present, you can't be like, oh, we're going to calculate for everybody. No, everybody's not going to get it. And this leads us to the next topic, which is hajab, on slide number 20. So this part we have to pay attention to. But before continuing, slide 18 is, I think most of us memorized those heirs on slide 18. Right? So if someone were to tell us who's the strongest of the ashab ta'asib, it's sons, then fathers, then brothers, then uncles. And who's after them? Who would be the fifth one? We're not working with it, but who's the fifth one? Those who freed someone from slavery. He's number 5. But we're not working because there's no slavery, so he's number 5, the weakest. Okay, so once you look at this list, you memorize now ashab ta'asib and ashab fard. You memorized all those. Then we are now one more step we have to finish today. Before next week we could do some cases. We can actually start doing the numbers, because now we have enough knowledge and rules. We know the fiqh now. Because right now we're missing the most important key, the hajab. Hajab means exclusion. Somebody's getting, someone's not. And in many ways it's the hardest part to remember, in the sense that you may remember the shares, but you might remember who gets, who doesn't get. So it's hard, because it's not hard to remember who's going to get. It's hard to remember the rules. And that's what the ulama say when it comes to inheritance. It's easy to know and quick to forget. Why? Because you knew what they like when you needed it. Oh, subhanAllah, who's this guy? Who cuts who off again? I forgot. So that's why people have to go back and they review their notes. Because you already know them, but you didn't know, you forgot the order. So the ulama say hajab here on slide 20, it refers to cutting off an heir. When there's share, right? When there's all heirs present, either you're going to cut off an heir, or you're going to decrease an heir, right, his share, or you're going to prevent somebody. So essentially, there are 3 types of hajab, right, of exclusion. Number 1, someone who is excluded due to their description. Like somebody who killed an heir. He's already out. It's called hajab al-wasf. That guy, we don't have to, he's wujudu ka'adam. If you kill the heir, we don't need to worry about that guy. He's there, but it doesn't count. So that's the easiest one. So what are the preventatives again? Who remembers? Preventatives are 3. Killing the heir, or different religion, or is it? Slavery. Yeah, someone's a slave. That's it. So this person is already out. That's it. But that's not the most cases, right? So second one, complete exclusion. Hajab tam, yani somebody who's been completely cut off. For example, a son cuts off all other people of ta'asib completely, except for the father, right? The father will get his 1/6, everybody else out. That's called hajab tam, complete. Hajab al-nuqsan, or sometimes they call the first one hajab al-hirman, the exclusion that's preventative, and another one they call hajab al-nuqsan, the hajab of decreasing, when you partial exclusion. That's when an heir gets less than the full amount you can get because another heir is there. In other words, if a daughter can get 1/2, she's supposed to get 1/2, but then when her brother comes, she gets 2 to 1. That's called hajab and nuqsan. She went from her full possible amount to a smaller amount. So it's kind of like saying that either you're going to be cut off completely or you're going to get lesser share because there's other people to share with. That's it. That's all it is. And the reason why there has to be exclusion, we can't give everybody, except there's going to be some kind of crowding and some kind of oppression will happen. The Sharia is against oppression. So who gets it? Awla, the one who's more deserving. But ashab al-fard, you can't kick them out. Right? And we're going to see some of them at least. Some you can, some you can't. So the rule is to remember who's going to get it, guaranteed, and who gets it conditionally. That's the rule. So this lesson is the hardest part so far. Why? Because you just have to remember it and review it a lot. Why? Because you could forget. Right? This is the part where he said, if you forget the numbers, that's not good, right? You can't forget 2/3 and 1/3, right? 1/6. It's pretty easy. What you're gonna forget is who cuts who off. So sometimes what happens, you're looking at like, I can't see it. This guy, I've got to double check. So some people, what happens, they read their notes and then they have to double check just to make sure. So in the beginning, you can do that. You can check your list and see, okay, who will get, who doesn't get, to ensure you don't give someone the wrong amount. But the problem that comes is that if you think that everyone's going to get it, it's not correct. Somebody will get and some won't get. So the easiest way to remember is first to remember who will get all the time and who won't. And what does this apply to? Cutting off applies to both ashab al-fard and ashab al-ta'asib. Those who prescribe share and those who get residual. Both of them get cut off. So the easy part is cutting out the people who are ta'asib. We already said, the stronger one gets it. Kind of easy, that one. So what are you going to say? Sons, fathers, brothers, uncles. That's easy. We go in that order. The other one, we have to have some principles. But to help us, maybe we should start off with some basics. Which is that if you go back all the way to slide number 15, and we start there, we have to start marking who can get cut off and who can't. Okay, let's start off there for a second. So slide 15, everybody remembers this slide? So we have now here all ashab al-furud. Who are the people who can never get cut off? Okay, ready? Mother and father, that's 2. It's 6 total, right? So it's easy to remember. Mother and father, they never get cut off. They only get decreased. Never get cut off, only decreased. Mother and father. Then husband, wife. That's pairs, right? Husband, wife. They can get decreased, never cut off. So mother, father. Husband, wife. Son, daughter. That's it. These 6, they can never get cut off, only decreased. That's it. You memorize that? It's very easy. In most cases, it revolves around those. Mother, father, husband, wife, son, daughter. So what are you going to do? Remember, son is not ta'asib. Not farad, it's ashab ta'asib. So in many ways, it's like saying there's 5 and you just get the son in. But the son is so important, as we're going to see, because his presence changes everybody's amount. So these 6, you can't cut them off. If you have them present, you cut them off, you did something totally wrong. Right? That's wrong. The others can get cut off, completely or partially. So let's review this. Who can't get cut off at all? There's 6. Who are they? Mother, father, husband, wife, son, daughter. So go in pairs. It's easy to remember that. Like mother, father, husband, wife. Well, they go in pairs anyways, right? These 2 can't be divided. So they go in pairs. That's it. Who else are remaining? Can get cut off. So if you're talking about ashab al-fard, there's 5 left. You're talking about ashab al-ta'asib, it's everybody else. So ashab al-fard, if it's not these 6, who are they? Grandmothers, grandfathers, full sister, paternal sister, maternal sister. Come on, just follow the line. Grandmothers, grandfathers, sisters of all types. That's it, that's the easy way, right? Akhawat mutlaqan. That's what I'm say. All sisters, and then grandfathers, grandmothers. So why am I saying this? Because those 5 can get cut off. How? Completely or partially. So the reason why it's important is when you're doing inheritance, then, if you follow the hadith, what do you do first? If you're right now trying to cut a case, you first give everyone share who cannot get cut off, guaranteed. And you're going to decrease if you have to, or give them the full amount. And then you look to the others. But the problem that happens sometimes is that people looking at it, they can't see who gets cut off, who doesn't get off, who cuts off. So what happens? You start giving random people things they shouldn't deserve. And that's where sometimes the cases go wrong, because you're giving somebody who's hawashi, you forgot the person's fard usul, or some kind of weird distribution. And sometimes distribution, it goes wrong. Sometimes the numbers also help you to know how you're going to do it. And so, for example, if you look at the numbers, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 2/3, 1/3, 1/6, the numbers guide you a little bit too as to how you're going to distribute. Means, does anybody get 3/4? Does that exist? No. So that if you're doing that, you did something wrong there. By 3/4, where'd you get that from? So some people, they're doing that. Unless, of course, ashab ta'asib, everything left. But if you tell them it's half fard again 3/4, where do you get that one? You pull that for yourself. So sometimes some numbers, you look at them like it's impossible. Because these don't even work together. So we're going to see this, even patterns when you do the math. Next week we're going to see you can correct yourself, even look at the numbers. I know this doesn't work. Why? Just by the who's joining who. طيب. Let's now look at ashab all the way at slide number 21. This is the easy part, ashab ta'asib. So here's the rule. The heir who is closer in nearness and stronger in relationship cuts off heirs that are further and weak in relationship. That's ashab ta'asib. Closer you are, cut off the one who's further. Okay, example. Son cuts off the grandson. Why? Son is closer in which way? In qurba. And second reason, the grandson came from the son. So that's another rule. The one who comes from someone, he cuts off the one who came out from him. So if it's a fara', the one who came from us. So grandson came from the son, so son is stronger, he cuts him off. The father, he came from the grandfather. So the grandfather cuts off the father? No, the father's going to cut him off. Why? Because he's closer. See, you got to use that logic here. So he came from him. Then in that case, we're going to go all the way back to Adam alayhi salam. So we don't do that. That's not how it works. The one is closer. You don't go that way. So what we do is who is closer. So we're going to come to that. So another example, full brothers. Full brother cuts off the paternal half uncle. Full brothers cut off paternal half uncle. Why? Who's stronger, brothers or uncles? Brothers bin babi jiha. They're going this way. So remember the two words. If you look sons, brothers, sons, fathers, brothers, uncles, this way. And then within the classes, going this way. So if we're in the same class, who's up, who's higher? If they're across classes, who's closer? That's it. This is the easiest one. Ashab ta'asib is easy because you can just know quickly who's going to do it. So but you have to remember that. Sons, fathers, brothers, uncles. You have to memorize that order. And most cases, if you think about it, what are you going to be working with? With sons, fathers, and brothers. Uncles, not so much because they do exist, but that's if everybody else is out, which is not so much common. So even sometimes when they do the exercises, it's purely theoretical. But in real life, it's very rare. Son is not there, uncle's there. Right? It's very rare. In usual cases, we're going to find the closer ones are there, and the further ones are there too. Okay, so you have to remember this point, going back to slide number 18. The way I presented it here is both strength, and it teaches us how the hajab will work. So when you look at the list, you just remember, anybody who's a full brother is stronger than a paternal brother. Okay, how about maternal siblings? Clearly they're unique because they're maternal and they're siblings, but they're not ashab ta'asib, they're ashab fard. So they're unique. So we're going to see that there's some even weights within the classes. So he's not in the list. The paternal siblings, you have to leave him alone. He's in a different class. So you're not going to see the full brother is going to cut off a maternal sibling. Is that correct? No, because he's ashab fard and he's ashab ta'asib. Only ashab ta'asib are working here together from the people who are in that category. And we have to understand this because sometimes what happens, the logic sounds right, but it doesn't work for Sharia. The Sharia didn't say that. Okay, everyone so far is together? Now we go to the last slide for today, which is the main one. And from this, we're going to be able to do most cases, except the rare ones and the exceptional. These are the rules of complete exclusion, hajb al-hirman, for the ashab al-furud. So about 8 different principles. So this is the one where you have to kind of you have to memorize it, really, right? And really think about it. And that's one of the things about some of these ulum. Fara'id is not hard, it's just a lot of memory work and thinking about it a long time. Right? If you do that a lot, you're going to be good because you're always remembering. Number 1, foundational heir that is closer cuts off a foundational heir that's further. In other words, ashab al-usul. Who are the usul again? Foundational heirs are going to be fathers, grandfathers, right? Grandmothers, right? And that's it, right? So grandmothers are 3 types, we said, grandfathers, all of them, right? Upper to the going up, and fathers. Is anybody else there? Okay, so from this category, when we say of the same kind, you're going to start dividing groups. Also, we forgot the mother, right? So we're going to divide ashab al-usul in accordance to their gender. Okay, so we're going to take some notes here. Ashab al-furud, usul, foundational heirs are 2 types, males and females. So think about it that way. And then maybe the easiest way to remember, if we go back to our slide number, where is the slide again? 15. If you turn back to 15, it helps you to remember. So now think about it. An heir can be either foundational, male or female. So father and grandfather, they go together. Why? The same jins, same gender, and both ashab al-furud and ashab al-usul, and also some of the ta'asib. They're all in the same category. So who's stronger, father or grandfather? Father. That's it, remember. The father will cut off the grandfather because, number one, he's closer to the deceased. And what else? That's it. That's how we're arguing. But they're same jins. Mother will cut off a grandmother. Why? They're closer to the deceased. And what about the mother? She's a female and grandmother's female. So they're the same jins. So now we have to put in categories. So if you make notes, it's easier. So you're never going to say the father's cutting off the grandmother. No. That's not two jins. They're not going there. So you have to write that down because sometimes what happens is you're cutting off people for no reason. You can't cut off grandmother except the mother. So we have to remember that. Fathers can cut off grandfathers. Right? You have to write this down. You have to memorize this. This will make it so much easier. So fathers cut off grandfathers. A grandfather who exists cuts off a great-grandfather. A great-great-grandfather cuts off a great-great-great-grandfather. Like that, right? Because he's closer. Okay. The next one, from the same principle we're looking at, a mother cuts off grandmother. Okay? Because she's closer. Okay, how about the grandmothers if they're in the same level? So grandfathers are all on the same level, unless there's one higher. Grandmothers, there's also levels amongst them. Maternal, the paternal, then there's up one. So the maternal, paternal ones, you can consider them like one and one above them. But usually we don't have to worry because people don't have that many grandmothers, right? But that's another thing. If it does happen, there's many grandmothers, even between that, you have to ensure. But that's if there's no mother. Right now, we're going to do basics. So right now, we have foundational heir that's closer to the deceased, will cut off to one further. So we have two examples. A father cuts off grandfather, mother cuts off grandmother. That's principle one, hajab. And we say same kind means same gender. So maybe you have to put same gender. That makes it a little bit easier. If you say same jins, it's not gonna resonate. Right? So language, just whatever is easy to remember. And principle number two, subsidiary heirs, ashab al-furu', that is closer, cuts off the one that's further, of the same gender. So, when it comes to ashab al-furud, who are the people who are furu'? Who are they? The sons, grandsons, right? Granddaughters, also going down. So, the one that's closer to the deceased cuts off the one that's lower than them. But then some may say, but what about when it comes to the male versus female, right? That's why it's unique. We say the same gender, or we're going to have a principle that's unique for that too. So let's go to slide number 18. Sons will cut off grandsons. A son will cut off a great-grandson. A grandson will cut off a great-grandson. So whoever is up close to the deceased cuts out the one below. How about granddaughters and daughters? So this is unique. This one is a little bit different. Why? Because as we're going to see, those ones, daughters, are not that strong. So they can't cut off the granddaughter that easily. So when we say subsidiary heirs, you're thinking subsidiary heirs, ashab al-furu' of the males, right, specifically. So son will cut off the grandson will cut off the one below him, like that. And as for the granddaughters and daughters, they can cut one off. The granddaughter can cut off a granddaughter, but with conditions. And the reason we're saying that is because whenever it comes to the female side, they're a little bit weaker in there, who they cut off. And it has to do with the fact that the inheritance is given to the people who are going to be spending and taking care of the family, so they have stronger weight. So in this line, we can see subsidiary heir that cuts off the closer one, right? Of the same gender, you can think mostly male. And we're going to maybe fix the wording for that. Okay, third principle. A male foundational or subsidiary heir cuts off all marginal heirs unrestrictedly. So this is a very important principle. So somebody passes away, they could be an heir one of three ways. What are the three ways you could be related to somebody? Either ashab al-usul, you're a foundational heir, or ashab al-furu', you're a subsidiary heir, or you're from the hawashi, on the sides. The people who are males from the usul and furu', they cut off all the hawashi, mutlaqan, unrestrictedly. So a father, if he exists, all heirs who are marginal, whether he be in the ashab al-furud or ashab al-ta'asib, get cut off. So let's give an example. Father is present. and a full sister is present, what's going to happen here? Full sister doesn't get nothing. Why? Because Ashab al-Usul is here and she's Ashab al-Hawashi. Another example, a son is there. I said the son is the most important. If a son is there, everybody who's on the Hawashi, means everybody who's on the marginal side's out. So can you see now how simple some of the cases can be? You're going to look for Ashab al-Usul, Ashab al-Furu', done. Once you see the son is there, you give those and everybody else, everyone on the sides are out. So always remember, people who are males on up, so literally the people who are most important, fathers, grandfathers, sons and grandsons, these four. Very important because they cut off everybody else. And some will say, how does that make sense? Think about it. Ashab al-Usul and Furu' who are male are stronger than Ashab al-Hawashi. It doesn't matter what they are. So to give you an example, does a son cut off a full brother? What do you guys think? Son cuts off full brother? Yes. Then therefore he can cut off the full sister. Make sense? Can a son cut off, for example, the grandson? Yes. Can he cut off a daughter though? No. What is he going to do? He's going to share. See, that's it. So the thing is like Ashabul, so this third principle is very important. Any male foundational heir. When we say foundational heir, you're thinking who? Father or grandfather. So you put it in simple terms, fathers, grandfathers, grandsons, and sons cut off all marginal heirs. So that means pretty much maternal siblings, paternal, full, all those siblings on the side out. And someone will say, why is that? Because we already categorized them into three categories. So now you know the fa'idah, the benefit of knowing who's usul, who's furu', and who's hawashi. Why? Because now you can do it fast. So see how sometimes it's very fast to calculate. Sons, okay, everybody else out. Mother, father, they get it. They said, you give the 6 and done. So some cases within minutes. Why? Because you're only looking for who doesn't get cut. The rest go to the son and daughter. Those daughter, the son, khalas. Or the sons, they all take it, done. So sometimes what happens in our situations, we're thinking about cousin and you think about uncle. You take it too far, man. You can't be here. So some of our family problems start from there. Cousin so-so thinks he's in the case. Doesn't know furu' or hawashi. He doesn't know what's going on. Tell him, when your father passed away, you're a son. Here, you're not. Go here. But sometimes he thinks he's going to come. He thinks his son. Or sometimes the uncle's coming in. What's he doing here? You're the hawashi. It doesn't matter if you're full or half. We see this. It makes life easier. But when there's no son, or there's no fathers, no grandsons, no fathers, no grandfathers, then the case becomes more open. So think about that. Remember, let's take away. Go to slide number 18 again. If you take away the sons category, take away the fathers category, now it's more open. Now it's open to more people. But when those two are present, we're not thinking about others. So that third principle of hajb is very important. So it's male. Why not female? Do daughters cut off hawashi? No, they don't. All right, we're going to see. It doesn't work that way. Number 4, female foundational heirs cut off maternal siblings. That's the only one the female maternal foundational heir can cut off. So what does that mean? Who's the female foundational heir? All right, sorry, not foundational heir. So I should say subsidiary heir. Sorry. All right, so let's fix that. Sorry, guys. This is a subsidiary heir. So I'm going to correct that. Female subsidiary heir. So granddaughter as daughters and granddaughters. So that's what it should say. Sorry about that. So if a female subsidiary heir, she can cut off maternal siblings. Okay, how about the son? He can also cut. So the son cuts them off, but also the female. Why the maternal siblings uniquely? So the scholars will say, well, look at this one. The female subsidiary heir is a fara'. Maternal siblings are hawashi. Even though they're ashab al-farad, they come from the weak side. So a fara' from the paternal side is strong enough to take her out. So that's one of the unique cases. So in other words, maternal siblings don't get anything if there's daughters or sons. Right? They don't get it if there's any daughters or sons or fathers or grandfathers. So that's why maternal siblings are weak. So female subsidiary heir cuts off maternal siblings. So we're going to correct that. It should say subsidiary heir. Number 5. So marginal heir that only receives the inheritance by ta'asib. So what we just studied in slide number 18, whoever is closer cuts off the one who's further. So that's slide number 18 or slide number 21, sorry. Whoever is closer takes out the one further. So what does that mean? We're talking now ashab ta'asib. Sons take out brothers. Fathers take out brothers. Brothers take out uncles, like that. So we already studied that, but just putting it there anyways for a reminder. So a marginal heir. So that's another thing. One way to help you do the cases, you just put each number, letter. who's asl, who's fara', who's hashi, right? One from the hashi, you put the numbers, letters. That will help you to remember who's going to cut who. Because it's easy then, right? So you're kind of thinking like a plane. Who's coming up, who's coming down, who's on the sides. And it's really, why is it important? Because when you're cutting the case, you want to just look at the big picture and say, okay, who could take out who very easily. But sometimes what happens, you just look at, if you memorize everyone's case independently, without these usul, you could do that too. Right? So some people, when they memorize it, they just memorize all the shurut. Right? So the bint was shurutuha, and this one shart, they just memorize the whole list. I think that's harder. Why? Because you have a lot of lists and you just mix everything up. But if you have the principles, it's easier to remember. It's only 8 principles, right? Alhamdulillah, otherwise it will be a long list. Everyone has a long list. So sometimes what the ulama do, they start off each one with their conditions. Half page like each one. So what they do is they memorize like that. So I found that to be more trickier because you have to memorize everybody's conditions. Why don't you just memorize principles? These are qawa'id. So let's go number 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, and 8 is where we're going to really have to think. And only works when we look at cases. So when daughters receive 2/3. When do daughters get 2/3? When there's 2 of them and there's no brothers, right? To share with her. Just for saying it, but 2 of them, right? So there's when daughters get 2/3, 2/3, they cut off the granddaughter unless she shares with her brothers or those lower. Okay, so let's think about this now. What is the shares for a granddaughter? Who can remember? Granddaughter can get what? 2/3 if there's 2 of them, or half, or 1/6. Okay, focus on the 1/6 one. When does the granddaughter get 1/6? So the one way to remember, you're gonna say, okay, she only gets 1/6 if there's 2 daughters. Okay, and then she has a brother. Or the ideal way to remember, she gets 1/6 when her sister takes the daughter takes half. So if the daughter gets half, there's 1 daughter, then the granddaughter gets 1/6. And anything remaining might go to the full sister. But the granddaughter gets 1/6 when there's 1 daughter. When there's 2 daughters, she gets 0 unless her brother is there with her to get the 1/6. And then we put on the notes there, or someone lower than her. So someone will say, that's a lot of rules. But you have to think about it deeply. When a daughter is by herself, how much does she get? 1/2. So that means the granddaughter will get 1/6. Together that makes 1/6 plus 2/3. 1/2 is 2/3, right? I forgot it. It's okay. This is easy. 2/3. You don't need the fractions, guys. Just memorize that. That's it. Right? So that's remember. So 1/2. So the rule is look for 2/3. When the 2 daughters get 2/3, someone over took 2/3. Granddaughter gone. You can't add 1/6 to 2/3. I told you that's wrong. Why? Too much numbers here. Arab, they don't go there. That's enough. The Sharia said that's too much fractions. Let's keep it like that. So it's a 2/3. You're going to look at it later. That's going to be one of the ways to figure out who gets what. So think about it. Daughter and granddaughter. How much they're going to get? Okay, daughter gets 1/2. Granddaughter has to get 1/6 because they both have 2/3. Okay, now if the 2 daughters, they get 2/3. So granddaughter gets 0. Unless her brother came in by her grandson, right? The grandson who's going to work with her. Then together they get the 1/6. Because they're going to be like sharing. You see, that's when it brings in, because that scenario is rare. Why? 2/3 was 1/6. So it's almost like saying you get the 2/3 and you get the 1/6 on that rare case. Okay, let's go back to another case now. What's the next one? It's the same idea. 2 full sisters. When full sisters receive 2/3, when do full sisters get 2/3? When there's 2 of them. They cut off the paternal sister. Unless the paternal sister has paternal brother. Same thing. Okay, who can explain the logic again? What did I just explain? Okay, let's say there's 1 paternal sister and there's 1 full sister. How they're going to get it? Okay, so what's the shares for a full sister again? 2/3 if there's 2. 1/2 is if there's 1, or they share with the brother, right? Okay, let's say there's a full sister, 1 of them. How much you get? 1/2. And then let's say there's a full sister, paternal sister with her. How much are you going to get? 1/6. Why? Because together they get 2/3. But then now, if there's 2 of them, what happened now? The full sister, how much do they get? 2/3. So what happens to the paternal sister? They cut off unless the paternal brothers come help her. There, see? It's always, so again, another example. The number 8 now. They're all following the same. So these are the trickiest ones. Why? Because they have like a unique little thing going on here. The 2/3 rule. They're all going on 2/3. Number 8, full sisters get residual amounts when they're 2 daughters. So the qa'idah the ulama always mention, al-akhawat asabat ma'a al-banat, or akhawat ma'a al-banat asabat. Yeah, their brothers, the sisters, full sisters. When they're with 2 daughters, they become residual shares. Someone will say, why? Okay, I'll show you something. Go back to our chart. Chart number, page 15. Go back to that for a second. Do you see how I put the daughter and full sisters in the same place? There's a reason. They're in the same level. The daughter can't cut off the full sister. She can't. She can't, right? Only daughters can cut off granddaughters. And full sisters can cut off paternal sisters. So in my chart, do you see how it's lined like this for a reason? I did it on purpose. Why? Daughters can cut off granddaughters. Full sisters can cut off paternal sisters. Daughters can't cut off full sisters. And granddaughters can't cut off full sisters. So why is that important? So it's going to show us level 1, level 2. So if there's 2 full sisters, or let's say there's 1 daughter, so 2 daughters, and 1 full sister, what are we going to do here? Think about it. Okay, 2 daughters. How much they're going to get? 2/3. And then what happens to the sisters? What is the sister supposed to get? According to our numbers here, 1/2. What's wrong with that? 1/2 and 2/3? Shaykh, what's going on here? Right, this is not right. So what are we going to have to do? So the ulama say, the sharia says, then she just gets the residual amount. She becomes asabat, means she gets what's remaining from them. 2/3, always 2/3. 2/3 too big, right? It's the biggest share we have. So when the 2 daughters get the 2 shares, 2/3, give the rest to the full daughter. How much is going to be the rest? Whatever is remaining. And what's remaining? How much is it? 1/3, that's it. Done. And so it's important to remember that point. Because when the sisters are working with the daughters, they have a unique relationship. Why is that? Because you can see that the 2/3, giving the half on top of 2/3 is too much. Okay, watch this now. Imagine there's 1 daughter, 1 full sister, and 1 granddaughter. Who can give us the numbers here? 1 daughter, 1 full sister, 1 granddaughter. Yeah. Okay, so daughter gets 1/2. Okay, so the granddaughter gets 1/6. Good, the sister takes remaining. That's how it's going to work. See that, what he did there? He gave the half to the daughter, 1/6 to the granddaughter, and the rest to the sister. So is the sister getting more than granddaughter? Yeah, it's 1/3, and she gets 1/6. Yeah, but the problem is that if you didn't do that, what would happen? Either you might end up with the sister getting less, which doesn't make sense, or you kicked out the granddaughter for no reason. So who can explain it? The daughter and granddaughter make 2/3. They give the rest to her. See, 2/3 again, coming this way. Okay, how about another way? Granddaughter and full sisters. These 4, they have so many scenarios, right? So let's say the granddaughter and the full sisters. 1 granddaughter and 1 full sister. What are they going to get? 1 of each only. Half. Right? There's no 2/3 here, right? so you can't keep going 2/3. It's going to work here. 1/2, half. Okay, how about the paternal sisters? They keep getting knocked out here. Because they're weaker. How come they're weaker? Right? So we didn't mention it here, but it goes back to principle number 5. Paternal sisters are paternal. They're ashab al-fard, but they're still paternal. What if there's a full brother and a paternal sister? Does the paternal sister get anything? No, because the full brother is stronger. See that? This is interesting because we said how far, but look, think about bijiha. They're both siblings. One is paternal, but a sister, and one is paternal and a brother. Full brother. If it was paternal brother, they will share. But full, they say the cuts. So that shows the paternal sister is the weakest of all of the ashab al-fard. The weakest. And then followed by the granddaughter, followed by the full sister, followed by the daughter. So you have to remember this. Why? Because you're going to start seeing who will cut who. And when you do the case, you can also look. If you find these, the 2/3, who's going to make 2/3, who's not. And the reason why it's simple, if you think about it, it can create a unique situation. But usually it's not only 4 of them, right? There's also the son you put in this guy. So sometimes the cases will change. But the reason why this is important, the rule is full sisters, when they are there and there's 2 daughters, either 2 full daughters or 1 granddaughter, 1 daughter, then she's going to get the residual. And the reason why is, as we explained, because either we're going to end up giving the full sisters 2 less, or they're not going to end up with 2/3 property and the remaining of 2/3. So that's it. These 8 rules are the most important of what we studied so far. Because with these principles, you could do all the cases very quickly. Right? Obviously, it requires time to memorize it, to think about it. Because when you look at the cases, you know the numbers, but you just have to think who gets cut off. Right? So if you're forgetting the numbers, you have to first remember the numbers, remember the heirs, remember who gets cut off, and then boom, you could do any case. Except for those rare cases So next week we're gonna do some cases. We're gonna look. But we did some here, you can see. Ashab al-Farad, they get theirs, as long as they're not cut off. Then the word remaining, Ashab al-Ta'asib, done. So the scenarios are not hard. The problem people have sometimes, and even the ulama sometimes they differ. Some cases there is ikhtilaf. We're gonna get to those later, some ikhtilaf. But what we mentioned here, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, he mentioned these principles, for example, in the kitab Tasheel al-Fara'id or Talkhis Fiqh al-Fara'id, and others, they mention these dawabit. This is easier to memorize than the charts of all the conditions. But it does require you to think about it. And to finish, bad fa'idah, most of fiqh is like that. It's all tafkir, yani long thinking. About what? Not just the adillah. Have you noticed we didn't mention much adillah here? Because we're focused on the qawa'id, the principles and the conclusions. The principles and what their conclusions are, so later when you get the dalil, you get it. Right now, you can start seeing the confusion comes in this topic of the subtlety of the reasons. What's the ta'aleer for this and that? Why this one gets cut off that one? If you don't know the reason, it just becomes like memorizing list and then just putting one wrong and one right. These people's huquq, and if you get it wrong, somebody's money just went to somebody else. So that's why sometimes thinking about, okay, who cuts who off, why, and what's this reason, what will be, and then we're going to see later when you put it together, all the cases, there are sometimes the case is too much, too many shares, so we're going to have to decrease the overall. Sometimes too many extra left over, I got to bring somebody else in. But that's it. The rest of the fiqh are the rare cases, or what they call when there's too much shares and too less full amount. Means we have a situation where everyone's going to inherit more than one, a whole, right? That's called awal. We're going to see later when you have to, lower it. And rad is another chapter where we have extra left over, and there's nobody to take it. So we're going to have to give it, redistribute, right? Because no one took it, so we have to give it back to somebody else. So those are the other cases. But next week we're going to practice many of them. If you remember these principles, inshallah, it becomes very easy. And the more you think about it and just put random scenarios and take this one out, put this one in, it becomes, and like I said, you look at the people who are never going to get cut, the top 6, and then you look at those who can cut, and you ask yourself why. Ask yourself why. Who's going to cut and why? If you don't, what's going to happen is you might forget. And sometimes I think even a topic like fara'id, the only thing that makes it very hard, like I said, we didn't even do it, right? And that's what we do when we do the case window. We're going to do it the easiest way possible. We're going to do it, mashallah, the easy way. Because when it comes to hisab, you could do ijtihad in there and make it a little bit easier. We're not going to use the old-fashioned ways. Too much to memorize it. So if right now some people might say it's a lot of memory. If we keep going, there's more memory. You have to remember how to cut this, how to turn that. So we're gonna leave that off. Most of us know math, but this is it. So for homework, very important. If you want to next week to do the practice, we have to memorize slide 22, slide 21, and slide 18. With everything else that we memorized so far. So 18, 21, and 22. You have to memorize those, especially 22, because those are the principles which we're going to work with. Okay, so there, inshallah, we'll end with this much. Anyone have any question or anything? Yes. Yes, so you're right. So we can just say, inshallah, we can edit that if you want to, because it is rule number 9. You can say paternal sisters works similar way. So we can just say sisters with daughters. But so yes, if there's no full sister with a paternal sister, so still the same thing will happen. But then the problem is that usually there's more full sisters than there are paternal. So we can edit that and put sisters, mutlaqan. Right? So that's another way of putting it. Any other questions? Yes, brother. That's coming later, inshallah. The brother's asking, can you waive your prescribed share? Yes. You can do buyout too. You can say, you get your share and you say, I'll sell it to you. So if you got a portion of a house, you sell it to the heir for some money. So some people will do that. Because if you have a house, you don't want to live in there, give me the value. So we're going to talk about that. What do you do? And also, we didn't do the scenario right now. Right now, we do all fiqh. Next week, we have to start with the scenario, which is what? Someone passed away. This much debt, this much left over, this much that, this much janazah. You have to start like that. So sometimes there's nothing left after all the costs. So we have to do all that, then we get to the case. So yeah, you're right. So you see, then after all, there's also dispute. Someone doesn't like to share because it's too less, and they have a special situation. Can they redistribute amongst themselves? These are some of the nawaz that we're going to talk about. And so next week when we do the case, we start off with a scenario, and you're going to work it out. First we'll walk through one, and then we'll do one, and you can leave you some practice. But the main thing, in order to do it, you need to know who gets cut off. Because otherwise, you're going to give the wrong shares to somebody accidentally, right? But طيب إن شاء الله وأن with this much. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.